Good morning, everyone. We're going to give a couple minutes here for folks to log in, and then we will officially get started, but appreciate everybody being here. We're an interactive group, so if you're comfortable, turn on the camera. I see a number of you are, so we're happy to see you this morning. Want to see your faces and encourage you to be an active participant this morning.
Adam, I like your beard.
Thank you. And I'm bouncing because I'm also walking.
Very good.
Yeah, me too. I have beard envy.
Can't see you, Jesse.
Well, I'm trying to get kids to daycare and running all around the house, but just believe me when I tell you I haven't shaved in a week, and it's nowhere near Adam status for sure.
Got it.
I envy the beard, but I just miss the hair. I mean, if I could just get the hair thing worked out, that'd be great.
Yeah. I had to pull it from here and slap it up there.
All right, I think we are good to go. I will continue to let folks in as they get here, but we do have an hour, and we've got a ton of content to fit into that hour, so we're going to go ahead and get going. So welcome to everybody. I'm Vice President at the Entrepreneurship Institute. We're very pleased to have you here this morning. We've got a great session lined up, a ton of content, and we want this to be an interactive session. So we encourage you. I'm glad to see so many people with cameras up. We encourage you to ask your questions, either unmute and ask. I think Matt's going to be pausing every few minutes or so to allow that to happen. Of course, chat is an option as well. So please throw questions in the chat, and we'll be watching both. So with that, I'm going to introduce Matt Nettleton at Sandler Training, who is going to serve as this morning's facilitator moderator. So Matt, it is over to you. And again, welcome everybody.
Great, welcome. This is our first event from an Indianapolis chapter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of the four panelists to introduce themselves. Let's start with Christina. If you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Mungi. I'm a Managing Director and Region Manager for JP Morgan Chase here in Indianapolis. I'm responsible for our commercial banking business across Indiana and Ohio. So nice to meet you.
Excellent. Amanda Parker.
Good morning, Amanda Parker. I'm the owner of Collective Alternative. We are a full service marketing firm. We do everything from websites to branding, PR, social media, you name it. We primarily work with small to medium sized businesses, and we focus on strategy first.
All right. Karen?
Good morning. My name is Karen Veach, and I work in the private bank at JP Morgan. And my background is an estate planning attorney, and I talk to clients about their personal estate planning and wealth transfer goals and charitable goals and their business succession planning. Thank you for inviting me.
Excellent. Sam?
I'm Sam Smith. I'm the Executive Managing Director of Bradley Company, Indiana's largest locally owned and independent commercial real estate firm.
Excellent. All right. So we've got some questions prepared. If you guys want to throw anything else in the chat box, that'd be great. But we're going to kind of get everybody's feedback on some of these. Let's start with Christina. How has work from home changed your part of the world? It affected your business?
Yeah, I mean, I really think about this in two ways, one from our client's perspective and one from our own firm. I think from a client's perspective, working home has really put a spotlight on resiliency plans. Some had strong plans, others did not. We've had tremendous demand in our business around electronifying processes with companies, anything from outsourcing their check printing or enabling online approvals for payments, digitizing their working capital management. And clients have really had to focus a lot on fraud as well. Fraudsters know that when we're all working from home, that there are weaknesses in our controls. And unfortunately, they've taken advantage of that in a very big way in 2020. So that's been a huge area of focus as we talk to a number of clients. I would say at our firm, it's really upended the way that we've had to market to clients. Gone are the lunches, the cocktail hours, the golf outings, and we've had to roll out Zoom and other technology to really connect with our clients and build relationships in a digital way, which is quite tricky because we've kind of had to go from 0 to 60 from March to where we are today.
All right. Sam Smith, you want to weigh in on that?
Sure. The office market really has been challenged by this. You had a COVID recession, which really is causing companies to decrease their footprint. And then the work from home, if you're looking at the average employee, I think the number was 17% I just saw in a couple studies that are actually back to work, return to work. So substantial number of people are not back to work yet. And that's going to cause problems with landlords as companies decide, hey, this is a good model. We can decrease our footprint with hoteling and rotating schedules, and we don't need as much space. So that's going to really impact the office market. And there's debates whether it's more productive or less productive. I have my opinions. I think it does reduce costs, and it might improve efficiencies, but I'm not sure it's more productive, but we'll let the scientists decide that. It has been very hard on downtown retail, urban retail, because you have downtown towers where nobody's going in, and the retail, and then you add social justice riots and other things that have happened, really tough. So I'm not sure we're going to see a quick bounce back, and cities like Manhattan, I think, are going to suffer at the expense of the Indianapolises of the world, where companies can spread out. So anyway.
All right, Karen.
To piggyback on what Sam just said, I think that companies are finding a way perhaps to this is a new normal. I think that a lot of employees might permanently be doing some hybrid of working from home and going into the office, or just figuring out how to be remote all the time. In my area, where I talk a lot about estate planning, I think I've noticed two differences. The first is business owners have finally slowed down, at least in the summertime. They had more time on their hands and less meetings, and they were at home, and they were thinking about planning, contingency plans, things that they hadn't spent any time on when they're running fast, building their business, meeting with people. And so I did see a change on the personal side for the better, because clients were finally focusing on some personal estate planning matters that needed attention.
All right, Amanda.
So because I primarily work with small local business, we have not seen the at-home kind of work style the same way that larger businesses have. A lot of my clients are in the home trades industry, and as other people have been at home, they've been wanting to do home projects and all of these different things, bringing my clients out to their home. So, I mean, my clients have been boots on the grounds. I have home builders, one of which is on this call. Like, he's boots on the ground. He's out meeting with people, in front of people. And I mean, they've they're considered essential. We've got manufacturing clients, they're considered essential. So we've had a ton of clients that have just really had to stay up front and center, and the work from home model just doesn't work for them.
Yeah, I think the number I saw was 2/3 of America cannot actually work from home.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of bounce back to Karen. You mentioned people changing what they're doing, but what things are business owners doing to take advantage of increasing the value of their business in this uncertainty?
Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of the conversations I've had this year, and specifically in the last 3 weeks, is around the election outcome and how taxes may change next year. Income taxes, corporate taxes, and clients are interested in what the tax law may look like, which I'm not here to forecast what kind of changes will be made. But I think if you line up 100 tax experts, they may say that the changes are not likely to happen in the first half of the year. Perhaps it's not the first thing on the new president's agenda is tax reform. It may happen by the end of the year. And if we have a divided government, a lot of tax changes might happen through reconciliation, budget reconciliation, which is a horse trading kind of a thing. And it's not going to be the blue wave changes that we all were thinking about. And so clients are they're very knowledgeable about how taxes may change. And right now, while we have favorable lifetime exemptions, for example, and a low interest rate environment for some clients who are thinking about doing some gifting or wealth transfer, now is the time where they're focusing on that.
All right. Sam, you mentioned the change in commercial tenancy and everything with the work from home. How, just like Karen talked about how her people are reacting, how are your clients reacting to that? You're on mute.
Thank you. A lot of them have adjusted very well to the work from home or work from elsewhere strategy. They're hoteling, they're sharing cubes or seats, and they're reducing costs. A lot of consolidation we're seeing. Unfortunately, in many sectors, retail, hospitality, senior housing, student housing, they're pretty hard hit, harder than many sectors. And there are, industrials, the shining light, very bright. Things are going well there. Office does have some challenges in certain areas, and then some of the other areas in real estate are having challenges. So, we have been artificially propped up. I think the entire economy by the Fed with cheap money, and we have a lot of bankers on, so they can tell you. With cheap money and available capital and stimulus money. And when that stops, real estate's going to have another round of challenges. A lot of REO properties, I think, will come out in the next 12 to 18 months. And so we're basically putting out fires.
Christina, you want to add some data to that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as access to capital that Sam mentioned, it certainly does remain, incredibly cheap on a relative basis, right? It's been a super interesting year in 2020 because we started, the year with really robust activity in kind of January, February, shifted to a very chaotic mode in March and April, where banks' balance sheets were under stress. And the capital markets really went haywire at the time. And then we shifted into PPP, which was an extracurricular project that none of us were prepared for, but had to slog through to support our clients. And then we're now shifting back to a much more normalized environment. Capital is very available. Pricing of that capital has settled down, some cases at a higher level, but access to the capital markets, those probably have never been better in history. So it's creating a number of business opportunities for the companies that we serve. There's access to capital for growth, acquisitions, and we're seeing a lot of clients pursuing the sale of their business, as Karen mentioned, because that market and valuations are high in the market to finance those sales are quite robust. So it's definitely an interesting environment that clients are certainly taking advantage of.
All right. Amanda, with the marketing shifts that we've seen, I mean, your clients are still working, right? Everybody's still doing business, but what things have you had to do differently to generate opportunities for your clients as the market shifted to that work from home model?
It was certainly, as Christina mentioned earlier, utilizing technology, creating virtual home tours, doing virtual consultations, anything and everything that we could do to adapt to that virtual model, to really allow or provide for people to stay safe, and then just send the workers out or the construction, whatever it is, when they needed to. So I think we've tried to shift our communication strategies primarily to make sure that those things are virtual as much as possible so that we could reduce risk and make sure that we're still in front of their customer base. And we've not seen on the housing side, the residential side, the dips that commercial real estate has. So, I mean, people are still out buying homes, and so we've had to be in front of them, and we've had to be communicating to them and giving them an opportunity to see the properties and what have you. So, and with some of our essential manufacturers, like, they have to be able to bid on projects and be in front of their customer base and communicate opportunities, especially with some of them getting materials and everything from overseas, which they couldn't anymore. We took advantage of those opportunities because it's manufactured right here at home, so they could get it much quicker. So there was a lot of shifting of strategy, and since that's our main core focus, we did a lot of that very, very quickly and on the fly to try and make sure that we were maximizing what our clients could garner from what was happening.
All right. Let's talk about employee engagement. I think all of you have some employees that you're responsible for. Obviously, when people are working remotely, that changes the way they interact and engage with the company. Sam, what would you say work from home and COVID has changed about keeping your employees engaged? Oh, you're on mute.
Again,
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, we live on, like probably many of you, we use Teams, Microsoft Teams, but between Teams and Zoom, it seems like that's a very cheap, poor substitute for culture. And we probably did 2 events a month, maybe even 3 as a company. And it's really challenging because the things that you really want to do, like company picnic or, wrap party for, Christmas family, that kind of thing, you can't do anymore. And, Thanksgiving pitch-in, can't do anymore. So we've tried to do other things, more virtual. And then we do it in smaller groups. So it has been a challenge from keeping everyone engaged. And Teams has been really a fantastic tool for us to be able to connect everyone. And we use EOS as an operating system. So it really does. You have lots of meetings, lots of calls, lots of information sharing, and therefore you have connectivity in an era where we're all somewhere else. So.
Yeah. All right, Christina, you want to address that a little bit?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I'm responsible for teams both in Indiana and in Ohio. And so what we've been doing is daily team meetings. We've now kind of reduced that down to a couple of times a week, but I do think that was helpful for us to connect on a daily basis, able to quickly disseminate information to the team and hit on, various topics. I personally have been trying to check in with a banker or 2 per day, just to have that individual, how are you doing? How is your family? How was your holiday? kind of discussion to ensure that folks, I think mental well-being is certainly something that we're very focused on. We actually have access at our firm to an employee assistance program. We actually had one of the psychologists as part of that program join us. He joined us back in the April-May timeframe, and he actually joined us again last week to really talk about coping mechanisms and this kind of, odd environment that we're all in. And how do you think about, again, not only navigating the professional side of our equation, but how do you navigate the personal side and kind of handle holidays without family, et cetera. So that was a really good discussion. I would say, they say don't let a good crisis go to waste. I do think there has been a positive as far as, normally I have, again, 2 teams across 2 states, 5 different teams amongst those 2 states. And we didn't have as much connectivity as I think that we have now. I think Zoom has allowed us all to be on the calls together, all to hear the same message. And I think that there's a little more connectivity between the 2 teams as a result. So not all negatives, but certainly a challenging time for our employees.
All right, Karen, you want to add anything to that?
I was going to add that I think all the people on this call are relatively senior CEOs and seasoned in their jobs. And we all know how to behave on our own at home, in a work from home environment or any environment, to stay connected with our clients. But I would encourage all of us to think about the young people who have joined our firm like in the last year or the last 2 years, because these young people are really missing out. The way they learn is in the office, listening to us talk on the phone, listening to our conversations organically, sitting in on meetings, and just, reaching across the desk and saying, hey, how do I do this? And they're not getting that opportunity, and they're the ones that I think are really suffering in this environment. And a lot of them who have perhaps 2 roommates are rolling out of bed, and then their desk is in their bedroom, and they're doing Zoom 8 hours a day. And so there's some lost training opportunities there that we should all think about.
All right, Amanda, employee engagement.
To Karen's point, I think that's absolutely true. From our perspective, being a small business, we actually had 2 people scheduled to start with us at the time that we went to the work from home model, one of which is still with us and one isn't. It was just incredibly difficult. They couldn't learn and get up to speed as quickly as they needed to, and then had some family issues that had occurred, and so they quit and moved across the country to be closer to their family. As far as our other impact, because of our clients are small, we've seen those that have been affected by this, they lose production time, or it spreads so quickly within their business that they're hit and down for the count, and they've lost a significant amount of time and energy. So, I think making sure that we're communicating is very important, but my team especially, we collaborate, and so we needed to be in the office. We do better in the office. We do better face-to-face with our clients. And it's very difficult for us to make sure that that little bit of attention we get from our clients once a month when it comes to their marketing, we can make that impactful if we don't have their undivided attention face-to-face. So it's definitely been a challenge and something that we've had to work on. My team is in the office, but we're under strict restrictions, and we, even outside of the office, family interactions, everything, so that we can protect us and the team to keep us safe and moving forward.
Yeah. Sounds like the real key is having a structured communication plan of some sort to really keep employees engaged. So, all right. So let's kind of move on here. Amanda, one of the things that you talked about was marketing and strategy. What are some marketing tools or platforms that you recommend for people to use that as we keep moving forward? What are some things that you're recommending to your clients?
So we we have seen some of our late adopters to social really step up and gain some traction there. And I think social is more important than ever, especially because we need that personable side where people can see your personality and can get to know you and try and identify. So social is definitely one that you need to be on and on well. I would say it doesn't mean you have to be on every social platform. Make sure you're on the ones where your clients are, where your team is, and do those well. There are so many. There's even new social platforms that have launched this year. So that are growing like gangbusters. And I mean, that's definitely an area where people need to be. Anything that you can do, virtual tours of offices, virtual tours of a manufacturing floor, show what you're doing. Anything like that where you can invite someone in to be a part of it from a virtual perspective is huge. So those are the kind of things that people really need to figure out and work on with their businesses. In addition, I would say chatbots, any type of communication that you can offer that's more immediate because everyone is at their computer constantly is going to be huge moving forward.
All right. Brian, you've got a question?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Boy, it's some really good conversation here this morning. One topic that we're hearing from clients and seeing, frankly, as we get into our normal year-end cycle is, particularly in the commercial space with manufacturers and distributors, is really the depletion of inventory and the rise of prices. I think the Journal just reported a few days ago that iron ore hit a 7-year high. So I'd love to hear from Christina and what are the economists at JP Morgan saying about inflation? Are we it seems like we're poised for a real inflationary period, maybe at least in the short run.
Yeah, it does feel like that could be the direction that we head. I think, Brian, the challenge that we're all facing a little bit right now is just what direction are we heading, right? I mean, if there's strong demand, then I think you see a bit more of the inflationary environment. I think we still all have to be a little agile here to know that we could potentially have a rough couple of months here where, you know, we may have to shut down the economy again for a period of time to get COVID under wraps. So I do think that if we continue to see the demand that we have been seeing and frankly expect to see in a normalized environment, you know, inflation could absolutely become a real factor. Obviously, we've seen a lot of labor inflation too because of the fact that just labor is not available to our clients who are trying to keep up with really unprecedented demand. I don't think anybody would have looked at this pandemic. Nobody had the pandemic playbook, right? None of us, we had downturn playbooks, but we didn't have pandemic playbooks to really understand kind of how this was going to play out. And I think we've all been somewhat surprised by the fact that, you know, consumer spending has remained high. Demands, like Amanda, some of the businesses that she was referencing have remained incredibly strong, maybe even surprisingly strong in some cases. So I think that continues to show us that, you know, coming out of COVID, you know, with a vaccine, that we, you know, likely will see continued strength in the economy going forward.
All right. So Karen, Sam threw out EOS. At Sandler, we teach leadership for organizational excellence. Those are both structured kind of planning tools. When you look at your clients and you start to talk to them about what they should be working on now, what things are you talking to them about to prepare their businesses for the upcoming year?
I am always surprised when I meet a sophisticated, successful business owner. I always assume that they have all their ducks in a row, that they have insurance, that they have a succession plan, that they have a basic set of estate planning documents, that they, you know, have a file that, you know, if I get hit by a bus file, here's who's going to run my company, and here's who to talk to about this, this, and this. but that is often not the case. And so it's, I mean, it's really back to the basics. If something happened to you tomorrow, who is going to run the company? If you leave everything to your spouse who's not involved in the company, how are your key people going to feel about that? How do we incent them to stay? Is there going to be tax consequences of death? Are the people who are going to run the company prepared to run it? What if they don't have a chance at equity because everything is in trust for your kids? So I have a list of, you know, the basics just to go through to remind people that, of course, nobody's going to die tomorrow, but it's just, and so it's easy to blow off if you're not, you know, feeling chest pain or you're not getting on a plane or, but this is an opportunity. This has been an opportunity where people have been pausing and perhaps thinking about mortality to really look at documents, which you think, oh, I just did my estate planning documents, but they pull them out and they're dated 2003. So, you know, a lot has changed. The tax law has changed. The people that you named don't want to do it anymore. Your kids are older. So it's really just been back to the basics.
It's funny you bring up the basics because there's a book called The Checklist Manifesto, and it talks about the #1 cause of death in hospitals is not something exotic. It's doctors forgetting to wash their hands.
Right,
I mean,
sepsis, right? Yeah, infection.
I mean, it's the most basic stuff. So, all right, Sam, as the market shifts, you know, we're talking about the basics, we're talking about preparation, we're talking about, you know, platforms. What are you telling your people to look at, you know, as they enter into new leases, renegotiate old leases? You know, what are your clients worried about?
Yeah, well, a lot of them are worried about how to reduce costs and reduce risk. So we help them implement strategies if they're like a tenant to reduce their footprint, also to maybe shorten lease term, look at subleases, consolidations, implement strategies that allow them to reduce their footprint and therefore lower the rent. And then we negotiate. There's a lot of opportunities to renegotiate leases and to restructure them. For instance, like a retail tenant could pay percentage rent. So we take fairly aggressive moves for our clients to help them become a lot more flexible in this dynamic environment, which I think it's pretty critical. And other things we do is on the landlord side, it's just creative leasing. You know, the retail tenant that would go in this center you're probably not going to get a retail tenant. So maybe you look at a church or, you know, a B&B branch or, you know, an alternate use. So you have to get creative in this environment. So we're really trying to add value, hustle, a lot of free consulting work, to be honest, trying to help clients understand what's going on and what strategies might be helpful going forward.
So a lot of discovery.
Yes, a lot of discovery.
Yeah. All right. Christina, you know, you talked a little bit about some of the things that you're seeing, like big picture, economist, inflation, but what you use the term electronification, which makes perfect sense to you, but is a buzzword that means nothing to me. So if you were going to explain that to me, what would that mean to me?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's taking all of those very manual processes that we all have in our daily lives, right? It's writing a check. It is, in some cases, taking invoices and, you know, pushing the paper around the office to get the appropriate approvals for a payment to be made. Think about all those manual processes and how do you make them electronic, right? So how do we take checks to electronic payments? How do we take that approval process and make that a digital process? So how can we continue to, again, shift anything that was manual to electronics, an electronic process or a digital process? And I think what's important to flag there are some clients that were already making that transition. You know, banks have had that technology for quite a bit of time. But unfortunately, it's put a real spotlight on individuals and clients that didn't have those processes in place when we all had to shift to a work from home environment. So we suddenly had clients that would come to us at the beginning of COVID and say, I can't make these payments. I can't issue checks because we're not in the office. And so we've had huge demands on the digital technology that we've been spending a lot of money as a firm. And again, banks broadly have been spending billions of dollars on technology to evolve their processes to a more digital environment. And again, COVID's put a spotlight on that, and we're working very hard to shift clients to that. As I mentioned, fraudsters are taking advantage of weaknesses and controls, and this is a way for clients to shore up those weaknesses and ensure that they've got the right protections, again, with kind of more digital approvals rather than manual processes. Again, pushing that paper around the office is certainly something of the past. And frankly, a lot of these tools are creating significant efficiencies for our clients, right? So instead of needing 3 or 4 people to push those papers around the office for approvals, if we can do it electronically, use it via, you can scan invoices, have invoices, for example, immediately sent to an email address and digitized, that can eliminate some of the steps and processes. So instead of having those 3 to 4 people focused on accounts payable, perhaps you can instead redeploy them in other parts and other special projects within your company. Or again, in some cases where clients are struggling to get good talent, maybe you don't need 4 people going forward, you just need 2, for example. So creating those efficiencies in clients kind of day-to-day, kind of the financial process, certainly that's what we focus a bit more on, but creating that day-to-day efficiency is something that we've been helping a lot of clients with, particularly those who hadn't already made that shift to the electronification, as we call it.
Yeah. All right. So Amanda, Dan Sullivan with the strategic coach has said that nothing that happened in the past 90 days wasn't going to happen in the next 5 years, right? So that the pace of change simply accelerated. It didn't change directions. With that in mind, how would you look at, we've talked about, you've thrown a whole bunch of social media platforms up. You've given us a whole bunch of, what your clients are doing, but what things do you see accelerating as we come out of this?
I think addressing communications as close to your target audience as possible is imperative. So really zeroing in on who your target audience is and then directing that communication. There are so many tools available for us to find a lookalike audience. So you can take your ideal audience and then you can find people who resemble just that same person and target them specifically with digital advertising and a number of other means. Email automation campaigns where you're really engaging with people on their level and what they're interested in, rather than just throwing out all this information. They're not interested in that right now. They really want to get to the meat of it. And especially as all of the electronic communication has made things so much more accessible, people want to get to the information they want even quicker than they did before, which was really, really fast. So I think it's imperative that you use some of the new technology that's come out for marketing and utilize that to drill down on your audience and start communicating effective messaging directly to them as personable and targeted as possible. Lead magnets are great. Yeah,
so that what I've heard that referred to as mass customization. So customization at scale, where everybody gets what they're individually interested in, but they get it at high volume. So, yeah. Karen, the selling a business relies on stability and predictability. I mean, that's what people want to buy, right? Otherwise, they just start their own thing and hope for the best. How do you deal, you talked about doing the basics. But how do you get your clients to really deal with the fact that we're no longer in a certainty and predictability market, and that they really have to get after it to create value that they can either have a succession plan or an exit strategy from?
Right. I think that understanding what the value is of your business to the buyer is sometimes there's a disconnect between what the business owner thinks their company is worth and what a third party is willing to pay, whether that's a private equity or a strategic buyer. And so periodic valuations, even though there might have been a valuation done 2 years ago, frankly, is probably out the window. And getting a more recent valuation from an independent third party is more valuable. And for clients who are looking to exit, I think then there's two things that I try and get them to focus on. Number one, what they're going to do after they sell their business, because this is the most important thing on their balance sheet, the most important asset that they've done for a long, long time. And sometimes the clients don't know what they're going to do next. And so just imagining what life looks like 6 months post-exit. And number two, figuring out how much they need to live on and what their sources of income are going to be. I mean, how much is it going to take to support your lifestyle, whatever the lifestyle looks like 6 or 8 months from now? Because if your business has been a cash cow and has been, producing 10, 12, 14% year over year for the last 5 years, if you are relying on markets to replicate that same kind of return with zero risk, that's not going to happen, because business owners think that their business doesn't have any risk. But once they put it in the public markets, then all of a sudden, they want bonds, but they need 10% to run their lives. And so that doesn't compute. So understanding what it takes to run their life and then showing them how to get there realistically by taking the least amount of risk. And also setting expectations. Like if they're used to having, $800,000 a year from their business or whatever the number is, to support 2 homes and the net jets and everything else, that maybe the post-exit lifestyle is not going to look the same.
It sounds like you're saying I can't day trade penny stocks in my free time and make $800,000 a year.
No, you may be able to have your cake and eat it too, but we just need to understand what that looks like, preferably in advance of the exit, because sometimes people exit, they've got their check, and they turn around and they say, okay, now what? And they really haven't gone through the steps, the pre-transaction steps necessary to understand what life looks like after the exit.
Yeah. All right. Christina, now we're talking about going forward. We talked a little bit with Amanda, a little bit with Karen. We still don't have clarity on how to get PPP loans forgiven. We still don't have EIDL sorted out. Now we might have another stimulus. What are you doing to mitigate risk and uncertainty in your world?
I think that one thing that we focus on and certainly pride ourselves on is being agile. And I think we saw all of that occur at the beginning of this year. And I think we could have another round of that in 2021, as far as, having to adapt our business to potentially additional stimulus packages and programs that are rolled out to our clients at the same time that we're trying to still deal with the one that we put in place in early 2020. I think that broadly a message to clients is to remain agile. I mean, I mentioned a few moments ago, I think, it is possible, maybe unlikely, but it is possible that we still have another, shutdown to deal with the health crisis, the public health crisis that we're all faced with today. And, what do we have the right plans in place to deal with that, with or without a stimulus package? And then I think as we go into 2021, there is a lot of, question, we have some clients who are, continue to, struggle during COVID. What does a prolonged period of slowdown for their particular industry, what does that continue to mean for them, and how do they adapt to that? And then we have some clients that have seen, just massive demand, really unprecedented demand. And how do they continue to stay up, on top of that growth? Whether that is, having the appropriate labor force to support the growth and the demand of their business, and do they have the right working capital to support that as well? So, we're spending a lot of client time, again, we kind of see them in kind of two different buckets. There are clients that are continuing to be challenged, and how do we continue to support them in these tough times? And those clients that are seeing, again, this massive growth, and how do we continue to support their efforts as well? So, and then again, layer on top of that, this question of additional stimulus. So I think staying agile, being prepared kind of for any scenario. Again, as I mentioned earlier, all of us were prepared for what would a downturn do, to our businesses. But no one really thought that we would see a pandemic that would have this type of sharp impact on the economy. And we just have to continue to remain agile and ready to react to really whatever comes our way. Certainly, all of us are hopeful that in the second half, that we start to see a much more normalized environment. Certainly believe it's a new normal, as Karen mentioned, but a much more normalized environment as we go into the second half of 21.
Yeah, so this is a pet peeve of mine, that phrase, the new normal. What I prefer to talk about with my clients is a different normal.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not new, it's just different. And by the way, a month from now, it'll be different again. And, and a month after that, well, it's going to be a different version of different. So all we get is change. So, all right. So we don't have any questions in the chat box. If there's anything you'd like to talk about, now's a good time to jump in before we wrap up and get everybody to give us some quick action plans based on their area. I can throw one more question out here for Sam. But Sam, you've talked about changes in tenancy, you've talked about downtown retail suffering, and you've talked about big cities, giving up people to small cities like Indy. What's the future of real estate? Where does this go?
Good question. So unfortunately, when the stimulus stops, so there'll be another round of stimulus. But after that, there's going to be some additional pain and suffering in the commercial real estate side. Industrial is going to continue to boom, but there'll be further challenges as the economy has to stand on its own without the stimulus, because you can't spend to oblivion. At some point, the government stimulus will stop. At that point, the question is, what's our vacancies? I see a lot more REO. Tenants will continue to fail, especially in retail. There'll be continued issues with some landlords as a result, not just in retail, but across many sectors like hotels right now is just decimated. And because I don't think we're going to go back and do leisure travel and business travel like we used to. We're going to jump on a Zoom call, and that's how, because it's a lot more cost effective. So the world's going to change, and unfortunately, I think there's going to be a shakeout and consolidation in many areas in our industry, both on the service side as well as in different sectors. So you're going to see consolidation where there's going to be a lot of money chasing, I'll say, REO property, distressed notes. So what is, pain and suffering for some will be incredible opportunity for others. I think there's going to be some great buying opportunities in our sector.
And I think that's going to be the big thing. So here's what I want to finish with, and I'll kind of go down the line. But what I'd like to do is I'd like everybody to just kind of throw out 3 things that people should be aware of and can take action on over the next 12 months in your area. So 3 specific things that people should be aware of and can take action on in your area of expertise. So let's start. Karen, you want to start with that?
My 3 things are, number 1, as a business owner, think about if something happened to you, what the emergency plan is, who is going to make decisions in different areas, and write it down and have a succession plan, both emergency and long-term. Number 2, on the personal side, review your estate plan. Make sure that you have the basic documents, including power of attorney and somebody to make healthcare decisions if you become incapacitated. And number 3, have a folder or a checklist or a, if something happens to me, folder that basically shows your loved ones where everything is, passwords, accounts, online. Everything is online now. So we used to have paper, but now we don't. And so it's really about watching the email account to see what you own and where it is. And having a folder is a good planning. Those are my 3 things. Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Sam, 3 things. You're not on mute. Yeah, there.
Not on mute. Okay. Yes. So
Good reflex.
digitizing your business is critical, which I think we've talked about. Electrifying, but being more virtual, that's definitely happening in my industry. Increasing flexibility is going to be critical for businesses to thrive and survive in this environment. Decreasing cost, and then a 4th thing. So sorry, I added one. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's with recession, there's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of human talent out there that you can grab now, and so we're looking at opportunities to look at, hiring people and opening new offices and kind of swimming upstream, and then looking at opportunities in all sectors where, like, we're looking at REO. Well, it's raining, it's bad, but it's opportunities, so it's good. So just focusing on opportunities in this environment.
All right. Christina.
So number 1, I've mentioned this a couple of times, but I can't mention it enough, but is fraud. Make sure that you are prepared as a business for fraud. That you've done regular trainings, your team is empowered to raise questionable emails or payment requests, that they are following their processes, even in a work from home environment. Again, fraud is very real. It's growing at a massive clip. And fraudsters are definitely taking advantage of the work from home environment that we're all faced with today. I'd say too, as I mentioned, it's a pretty borrower friendly market today. I think it's a good opportunity to ensure that you've got adequate capital, whether that's to manage a downturn or continued prolonged downturn, or in your business, you need growth capital. Now's a very good time to get it, very competitive space. And I think this also provides an opportunity for you to review your partners, your advisors and your partners. I think, we've all seen, firms that have been challenged during the pandemic, but who's the partner that's going to be able to weather the storm with you, who's going to provide stability, who's the partner that's provided, that they've made the investments in technology, to allow you to, create efficiencies in your business, and who's going to continue to help me with thought leadership, ideas for my business, et cetera. So, I think now is a good chance for you to think about those long-term partners and who you're investing with going forward.
Yeah. All right, Amanda, you wrap us up.
Well, to piggyback on what Christina said, I think that's great advice. We've utilized this time to evaluate, who we work with as far as vendors, but we've also initiated some different training for our team, so that they can communicate more effectively, to create better processes. I mean, all of those things we've utilized in this time frame, and I think that's definitely great advice that she gave. As far as marketing, I would say automation, which we talked a little bit about earlier, really making sure that you're messaging to the masses, but in a very strategic and specific way. Video marketing, it's growing by, just huge. So the more you can do on video, the better, and it's not going away. YouTube is the 2nd largest search engine behind Google, and it's just growing day by day, like insane. So I would definitely say anything you can do with video is huge. And I would look into artificial intelligence, especially with marketing. It's grown a lot. There are a lot of different capabilities that you can utilize, a lot of different channels with AI, and that's definitely going to be a big part of our future, especially for our clients when it comes to their marketing plan.
All right. Robert, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, this was fantastic. I appreciate the panel this morning, the time that they put into this, and I applaud them for plowing through a ton of content in a short amount of time. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. I've got 6 till. So if there are no final questions, I'm going to give you all a little bit of time back. Wish you a good rest of the week and wonderful holiday season such as it is this year. And everybody, please be safe. And we'll hope to see you at another event eventually in person. Our organization does a lot of in-person events in all over the country, so we hope to be doing that here in Q2, Q3 in Indianapolis. So we look forward to hoping some of you in person. So thanks again to everybody, and especially to our panel this morning very much. We appreciate it.